right, welcome back, everybody, to Deeply Human Leading. I'm Leanne Del Carpio, and I'm joined with Gretchen Terry-Leonard. And we wanted to dive in today, look at kind of seeing clearly in this age of AI. If you're tracking even a fraction of how fast things are moving in the space of AI, even since the beginning of 2026, it's breathless. Like we are trying to keep pace with it in many different ways. And we're not tech bros. We're not living in Silicon Valley. We're employing as much of the advances in AI in our own business, our own work together, Gretchen, right? And also personally. But we've been reflecting about how important it is to courageously pause amidst that acceleration and try to see clearly amidst all of that pace of change. So that's what we wanted to talk about today is how do we see clearly the faster things are growing exponentially?
Exactly. And to that, thank you for that amazing introduction. I think the other important thing is seeing the headlines but not locking into them. And as you said, take a moment to understand people are just looking for content. They're looking to fill pages. They're looking for clicks and likes and to hook you. And that this is a time to really thoughtfully pause and not only think about what's happening, but absorb it in a way and metabolize it in a way that's positive and that gives you as much human agency as possible versus the overwhelm, which you're so good at as a leadership consultant, is bringing into focus our human agency capacity and ability to go through transitions smoothly, but it does take some grounding. So let's ground some humans about AI and all of these incredible advances that are going on right around us, swirling, literally.
Swirling around us, and it does take I think it's a muscle, it's a practice. And one of the things, many maybe some of you are familiar with this article. I'm actually had printed it out on actual paper, called "The Shape of the Thing." Some of you may be familiar with it. We'll put it in the notes below. But Ethan Mollick is a writer who wrote in October 2023 the first article about making sense of the shape of the thing, meaning AI. And this was, if we can like dial back to October 2023, Gretchen, right? This was like what, almost a year after Chat
That's
GPT first debuted. So if you can kind of go back in your mind, maybe you heard about this Chat GPT thing, maybe you played around with it. You were still using it like Google. If you did use it, you hadn't certainly integrated it into maybe the way that you work. And it just was beginning to come on the scene. And one of the things that he just updated this article, The Shape of the Thing, and it's dated March 12th of this year, 2026. And one of the things he wrote about in that article that jumped out for us is he said, I think we can now see the thing much more clearly, meaning AI. But we were wondering, can we? Right?
funny.
Because it's moving so fast. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I feel we have a deeper relationship with it, but I don't
Mm,
know that I feel it's still shaped very nebulous and unformed in my mind with tentacles that reach outward. If I were to give it a shape,
yeah.
it would be fuzzy with a lot of tentacles, almost like an octopus in a way, but not with that fully formed identity. And so I'm not sure, and perhaps he's in the hive, he's deeply integrated into that tech world. And here we are, a few clicks out using it, becoming as familiar with it as we can in our daily practice, and at the same time still having overwhelm. So I do think that it is a mind shift about how we think it is happening to us, but we're actually rather going to manage through it. And I would love your thoughts on that. How are you feeling? What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. The verb he used, well, okay, he used this as the shape of the thing is the noun, right? Like, what is the shape of this thing? But I actually think we have more power to shape it as a verb, right? To like look at like how we teach AI about us as humans, right? It was programmed in a certain way. And certainly in this article, he's talking about how we've entered a new era. We've moved more from like the large language models being more of this chat, right? And I think he talks about this as an era of managing AI rather than working with them, right? Which is no longer like using just AI as a tool, but directing and orchestrating not only systems but like team members essentially, which is what you and I are doing in our own work together. Like we're actually advancing the work that we have with our custom GPTs or our like actual agents that we're building into the business. But that has like hyper accelerated in the last few
3
weeks.
Yeah, I would
I mean,
say
how we're working today, we were talking about this yesterday. Like how we're working today is fundamentally different than 3 weeks ago. It's
yes,
crazy.
it is
So
crazy.
how do we see when things are moving that fast, you know? Um, and I worry because one of the things, and I don't know what your thoughts were about this, Gretchen, but in the article he talks about, you know, the technology is moving exponentially, but if you think about it, organizations around us are not really changing the way that they work that much. I mean, we as like kind of more of an entrepreneurial kind of, you know, both the for-profit and the nonprofit side, we're diving in and just like this is our era. Like what we can do with just two of us or a small team of five of us is dramatically different. Like these are not just tools. It literally is like
Extra
exciting.
employees, yeah,
I
it's
know and then we're like, how do we motivate the employees? And when we have offsites, how do we include the AI team? Um, but most people are not there, so I think it's really a challenge in like this technology is moving so fast, but our readiness as humans to absorb it is not there. And
right.
I
Well,
don't see it in organizations. What do you see?
there are so many layers in conversation. So let's just look through the layers.
Yeah.
There's the fear factor. There's just the human fear that some in some way this will damage, hurt, diminish, or replace. There's that. There's the technological. I don't understand it. Again,
Right.
shape of the thing.
Confusion. Yeah.
Just that confusion.
Yeah.
There's the happening to me versus
Mhm.
happening for me in service
Right.
of me. So
Right.
there's that thinking. So the human readiness issue is the place that deeply human sits at, right? So
Yeah.
are we ready? How can we prepare for what is? It isn't
Mhm.
coming, it is. It is now here. So that requires curiosity, um, curious instead of being fearful, an openness to asking really powerful questions that require to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, so that ability to hold tension, and
Yeah.
you're so good at that. What would you say if you're a person who's listening to this and you're a business owner or you work for a corporation and they're perhaps you don't even, they're just rolling AI tools out to you and you've had no human readiness training, what would
Yeah.
you say some thoughts for them would be helpful?
Well, so I think it's about changing our relationship with uncertainty. So most of us, when we're in more of a place of day to day grind, we're focused, we're trying to achieve output based on goals and structures that were pre AI for sure. We're already in a place of like
Pre 3 weeks
focusing.
ago, like everything.
Yeah, literally. I mean, and we're notoriously bad at the exponential understanding the exponential pace of change. So, like, our goals are linear, our systems are linear, our bosses are probably linear. Like in the corporation, it's I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with leaders in coaching sessions or in executive offsites, and they're like, "Yeah, I hear things are moving really fast." But anyway, we are not ready to absorb that level. So could we focus on, let's go back to what we can absorb. Like it's almost like a control the controllables kind of
Mhm.
reaction, which makes sense if you're in fight or flight, right? Like you can't get to that place. But there's also when systems move faster than people can respond, they don't necessarily just resist, they kind of disengage. It's like, let me compartmentalize. Like, this is they stop believing that their actions matter. And that's where in the um, body of work by Martin Seligman, Learned Helplessness, for those of you who are familiar in positive psychology, there's this idea that we learn that we are helpless, like we believe that we don't have that agency. And I think the challenge is what we're seeing right now is not just confusion, it's not just overwhelm, it's the early stages of potentially learned helplessness at scale.
Mm,
And that's concerning unless we first begin to, going back to your question, change our relationship with uncertainty. The first reaction in a space of uncertainty is let me like put this in a spreadsheet. Like I watch one client every time somebody tweets something, somebody makes a move, there's some chess move made, and on the larger geopolitical scale, just wait 12 hours because like things are going to
yeah.
shift again. Already, I have a couple of clients that like in like hour one after the first tweet, they're making spreadsheets. They're trying to like put stopgap measures in, and then something changes 2 hours later, and they're like, "Oh, we have to change the assumptions." They're spending so much time and energy trying to predict and control, and that to me is a old mindset. That's what we used to do to try to predict and control the landscape when it wasn't moving so fast. Now it's moving breathlessly fast, and we're still deploying that same approach. So rather than immediately reacting, doing what you said at the beginning, pausing, and then actually getting curious and asking what might be emerging here that could not only there could be a disruptive side that could be negative, but maybe something will be possible that wasn't possible before. And so you and I have done that activity, right? Before.
So good. And I think that it's not what is happening to us, but what is happening for us. And if we can look at what's happening for us, we are given technology that's moving exponentially. Okay. But the gap is we have our agency to be ready for uncertainty, to accept what is right now is to accept right now, I must learn a new skill, a new virtue, a new mindset of being comfortable with the uncomfortable, having uncertainty with more information than I've ever had before. And that's also attention. How can we be so knowledgeable with knowledge at our fingertips and also feel so unmoored? Whereas, in the past with little knowledge in comparison, we felt so certain. So it is about
True.
right?
Yeah. Funny, huh? A little ironic.
So well, there are so many cool things that can happen now that we have this tool. And what I find most fascinating is that AI is matching top human performance at 82% of the time on complex tasks. Three-person teams are shipping production on a software they've never even coded or touched or created. It's improving itself, it's writing its own code, it's shipping it, it's advertising it, it's telling the world all about it. So the sky's the limit when it comes to small, inventive teams doing great work. I think what AI unlocks for many people is the ability to see their vision come to life. Because prior to that, it was very much gate kept by funds, resources, knowledge, connection, all of that has been thrown up in the air. So having the ability to cut through the noise and see what matters in this uncertainty and your abilities is really where the exponential growth lies, not in being overwhelmed by it. And remember when you said, well, when my life blew up, I didn't really see it as like, oh, yay, this is exciting. And yet some people might be feeling like their lives have the fuse is lit, Leanne, because they've heard, oh, layoffs and things are coming. So much of the work that we're doing at Deeply Human is preparing leaders, employees, and organizations to manage through all of this change and opportunity. What say you about that sort of space?
Yeah, I think not only do we need to shift our relationship with uncertainty, to shift into curiosity and possibilities that every disruption gives us faster, but if we think about the advancements in even the last couple of weeks or months with AI agents, what's happening now is that our role as leaders interacting with AI is shifting as well. There's a lot of focus on the technology, what it can do for productivity, for efficiency. But within organizations, we need to start thinking about how what's required of us as humans to interact with this AI is going to shift as well. If we take a look at how you and I have interacted with the AI agents that we're building and using within our own sphere, right? Not a large Fortune 500, but just like what we can do in this small human and AI powered team. Um, what's becoming really clear is that we are going to be drowning in competent output. Like the competent output is like moving so fast and it can improve itself. Like this whole idea of, like you said, teams of three, I think it was called the software factory, where like three people, like they didn't write the code. And the AI improved its own code, right? And then what's the role of the human in that kind of business model? Well, you have to have real clarity of direction first and foremost. What is our intent? What is our purpose? What is not only our ROI or our metrics, but like what is the kind of value we want to create? And then what are the values? Just like Anthropic wrote a constitution for Claude as it evolves, so that it could not only learn and improve on its own in terms of the training material, but also adhere to certain values that would lead to a flourishing future. We have to think also, what kind of values do we want to embed in our instructions and our interactions with AI? So that it's interesting because the faster that technology is accelerating, and that's why we wanted to name it Deeply Human. The more deeply or profoundly or quintessentially human capabilities of getting clear on our value, our purpose, our clarity of intent, the more that becomes important.
And it's holding that paradox, right? So we're asking humans to be really comfortable with being uncomfortable, to have equanimity, to be able to hold that space. And at the same time, now we're asking humans, leaders, employees, founders, to be unambiguous in what they stand for. And that is, really a new way of being where humans could operate in ambiguity in a way that was not dangerous. This cannot be worked. You cannot work well with AI in ambiguous situations. Too much risk. There's too much potential for misunderstanding, for misdeployment, for iterating something that is completely unintended. So it is also that details, storytelling, knowing what you stand for, unwaveringly has to be really part of being grounded in this space of also having 2 feet on movable parts that are not related to each other. So it's like a whole new way of relating with the world. And it's exciting and frightening and requires some real foresight and mindsight, being able to like really visualize what you want. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the problem is the majority, I don't know what you see, but the leaders that I'm interacting with are so dysregulated in their nervous systems. First of all, they're just fatigued and exhausted to begin with, like with the volume of work, because we're talking about AI and the acceleration of it, but the pace of change is just extraordinary. And then you add in the other sources of disruption, geopolitically or economically, and I mean it's a lot for any leader to absorb. And also my kids in school making sense of like, what does this mean, mom? Like how am I going to be adding value? So when we are in a compromised state, where we're under a sustained kind of fight or flight response, we're also facing decision fatigue. Like we're exhausted because we're making all these like micro decisions in a constantly changing landscape, and we're in cognitive overload. And I think that's a huge risk right now if we do not pause and because it's hard to access purpose and clarity and values when you're like literally running from meeting to meeting and you're exhausted and you are not finding ways to find coherence. So coherence or finding grounding, nervous system regulation, whatever your practice is. If you don't have a practice and you don't want to know what I'm talking about, that would be the place to begin. Is like how can I ground even my breath, ground my body, and get myself out of fight or flight into more of an expansive state. Because if we're making decisions from that contracted space and the pace of change is moving so fast, we're not going to be able to develop the kind of purpose filled, expansive clarity that's needed to be able to shift our relationship with AI. So we're shifting our relationship with uncertainty, but now we have to shift our relationship with AI. It's not just a tool; it's a team member. And as a team member, just as your leadership now has expanded, whether or not you are using AI to this degree or not, it's just a matter of time. It's going to be like electricity. So your sense of what it means to lead also has to expand. And if you're not bringing that, just like a real leader is, if you're not bringing it with humans, they're not bringing a level of clarity on what we're trying to accomplish. We're not anchored into purpose. We're not creating meaning. We're not creating an energy of trust or a sense of how we create cohesion under increased stress. We're going to splinter. What do you think? What do you see, Gretchen?
I completely agree with firstly, the somatic system of grounding yourself when you start to feel overwhelmed. If you've had a lot of connection with either media, headlines, anything you find scary, or even working with your AI team members or dabbling in it, it can feel very, very overwhelming. So, like, acknowledge that and go and get some space outside, do a little meditation, go play with your dog, just disengage. I think that's and it's simple, but it's meaningful and it is powerful and it works. So there's that.
Yeah.
Then it's acknowledging this feels really weird and uncomfortable and stressful. Um, so because there are so many different camps, there's the tech camp that's all in, there's the person that's unfamiliar with AI that is like very afraid and is putting their hand up. I don't want anything to do with it. So everyone is in a different place. We are not
Yeah.
experiencing this all together as
No.
one. It is, it's not like the season finale of Friends where we're all watching it and we all know.
Oh, I remember that. I miss
And
that.
shared isolated shared experience. We are not having that. We are having
No.
experiences that are uneven and unaccompanied. Maybe phone a friend and find out, what they're up to and how they're coping with it. So I think that, to be continued, that we keep working through having coherence, clarity, congruence, and courage to talk about all of these things and then give, real tidbits of, looking for growth mindset, looking for curiosity when you're feeling overwhelmed, because this isn't a one and done prescription. This is an ongoing uh, launch into the future because it is happening and it is happening rapidly.
Yeah, and I think there's also one of the things that, well, in that article, The Shape of the Thing, Mollick talks about uncertainty doesn't mean helplessness. Like we don't have to be helpless. Like we actually, the window to shape AI is still open, but it's closing fast. And like literally, this is the year. I'm having trouble sometimes trying to share with some of my friends or others, like how important it is to begin to really lean in. Yes, do the grounding practices and then get back in there, right? Because
Mhm.
and it's also important to see what the threats could be. There are threats and things are moving so fast, even with like how governments are using AI in geopolitical scenarios and, how some of this technology is being deployed without, asking all of us, right?
Right.
For, and against humanity. I mean, so there's larger questions at hand, but it's easy in that environment to see it's such an existential threat. And then there's a lot of great safety and policy institutes out there. Thank God there's so many good groups that are working on that. But what can I as an individual, if I mean you can certainly support those groups, but today, like without going to a policy or safety level, what is it that I can do? Like what power do I have? And I think beginning to do everything that we've talked about. First, get yourself into a regulated space because you're not going to make good decisions or access what's possible from that place. Then think about 15 new possibilities that are possible that weren't possible before this disruption. What is one possibility, and how might I shift my relationship with AI to create that ultimate value? Um, Kids could start it with like a side gig or some sort of like way that they want to have impact in the community. My daughter is a marketing major and she calls it her big girl job. She's like literally been recruited by a marketing agency to do some of their social media and community engagement. She could, on a side project, work with Claude Co-work and just see like what's possible as a practice to not only practice the technical side of it, but a new way of relating with AI. And I think that's what's not it's not just exciting. I think it's actually essential. And I don't have all the answers. We're still as a family trying to figure out how do we make this kind of a summer project so that all the kids who are like 19 between basically, like college and graduate school years, how do we help them take everything that they've studied, but also play with this in a way that helps them practice discernment also. That's one of the key things that if we can build that muscle on human discernment, and you try it, test it out, and then see what can I bring to the table that's different and unique together with this amazing intelligence. And you're going to discover it, but you're not going to discover it thinking about it. You're going to discover it through practice.
Yeah, through playing with it and leaning into it. One important and just very simple thing you can do is if you do what I would suggest is get on Claude,
Yeah.
create an account. I personally use Claude. I know a lot of people use Chat GPT. I know we have some custom GPTs that are at that work at our company.
Yes, they do. They
uh,
have names. They
they
name
have,
themselves.
they do. They
Specific
have
roles,
yes.
custom designed.
They but what can be done is you can remove your information in your privacy settings so that it never goes to the greater training data. And I think that's an important thing. Just go in and understand your privacy settings and make certain that when you are having thought partnership with an AI, um, uh, with an AI service, that your thought partnership stays personal and stays within your own domain. That's a simple thing, and it's within your privacy settings. So that's an easy thing to do. And I think it's really exciting and holding that tension of fear and joy and anxiety is where we are. We are in the space of figuring out the virtues we need as humans to dig deep and find and grow. Perhaps they become stagnant or they haven't been needed up until now, and we're going to discover new things about ourselves. So I'm excited about that part of it, and also excited to learn. I mean, it's just learning at just a mock rate. I do have to say that. Yeah, it's
It's a crazy pace. And so I mean that's one thing that we can all maybe take away from today. If technology is moving at this breathless pace, and if what Mollick said in this article that is true, that most organizations are not changing, what groups or organizations or communities or schools or forums are you in, and are they changing? And what's one thing that you could start practicing or introducing so that there is an evolution of that group? Because only when we stay in that curiosity and the learning can we start to shape this thing that we think we know, but we haven't quite been able to pinpoint. But I think the more of
also
us that tap into it, the more that we'll be able to shape it together.
Exactly. And it's changing constantly
Yeah,
itself. So we
exactly.
must, do that as well. And with you at my side, Leanne, I know I'm in good hands and that you're going to help me
Likewise, we keep
really
each
with
other
this.
honest in this whole thing.
For sure, for
And that
sure.
that would be a final thing for guys, everybody. Find a learning partner. Gretchen is the most amazing learning partner. We teach each other every day. Oh, I tried this. Would you? Oh, this didn't work. And it's experimentation. And it's accelerating my personal learning curve because you're trying. I'm like, oh, how'd you do that? What did you learn? And we're building on one another, and it creates like a flywheel of
Right.
learning, practice, sometimes failure, learn from that, experimentation, move forward.
Yeah.
So who could that be in your life? Anyway, we hope this has been helpful. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Deeply Human Leading.
Thanks for spending this time with us. If something landed, sit with it. That pause is actually where the real work happens. And if you're navigating this shift at your organization and you'd like to bring this conversation inside your walls, go ahead and find us at deeplyhumanleading.com. If today's episode landed with you, share it with somebody that you think could really use it. The ripple starts there. Until next time, stay curious and stay human.